On the bench today, I have this splendid Seagull SM that's spruce with a mahogany neck, back, and sides. It's a 12 string, made in Canada. It's from approximately 1996. And once I give it some new strings and a setup, I'll get to play this. The first part of the setup is to take some measurements at the nut. First string's a little bit lower than 21 thousandths of an inch, but I want to take it down a little bit more. It feels kind of hard to play. The 12 strings that just require a little more strength. I put a capo on the first fret so I can hold it down on the 15th fret, see how much bow there is in the neck. I actually adjusted the truss rod to see if the truss rod worked earlier. Right now there's 19 thousandths of an inch of bow, so the bow is pretty decent where it is. I'll probably get it a little bit straighter after I put the new strings on. Right now, the height of the high E strings over the 12th fret is 4/64ths of an inch. On the lower E strings, we're looking at above 5/64ths. That's pretty good. I'm just going to want to get the low E down to 5 or 4/64ths of an inch, see how that feels. With my measurements done, I know what adjustments I'll want to make. As I file down the nut slots, I'm making sure that each slot will be wide enough to be compatible with light gauge 9 to 46 strings or 10 to 46 strings. Oddly enough, the G string is thicker on the light gauge strings, but this nut's compatible with either. I can take the strings off. Remove the truss rod cover. So if I take 2/64ths off the bottom of the bridge, I know the action at the 12th fret will be lowered by less than 2/64ths of an inch. While I'm putting the finishing touches on, I noticed under the A string it seems okay. For some reason, this fret, where the fretboard meets the body, is just a little bit too high. So I'm going to level the frets under the low E string now. I've got the high fret leveled, crowned, and polished. Make sure the ends are good. There's a little bit of a ding here. I'll scratch it up with a scrub pad using a very small brush. I'll apply a drop of, as always, polyurethane. Second coat, an even smaller brush. I think the ding's looking a lot better now. And the wood's protected, it won't soak up dirt. And the finish won't chip. That being done, the guitar is ready for its final inspection before the playing demo. Now I'm going to take the first of the final measurements. That is the action of the strings over the first fret. I'm using these little pieces of strings as feeler gauges. So here's a 9/1000ths of an inch piece of string. Let's try the 10/1000ths. So both of the higher E strings are at 10/1000ths of an inch. For the B string, I'm going to the 14. So the B string's at 14. And finally, this is a 20/1000ths of an inch piece of string, and it just barely catches under both of the lower E strings. To sum up what the measurements show, we've got the unwound strings between 10 and 16/1000ths of an inch, and we've got the wound strings between 15 and 20/1000ths of an inch. But what's more important is that they all play clean with no buzzing. In order to determine how much bow there is in the neck, I'll put the capo on the first fret. I'll gently hold down the highest fret and get this 12/1000ths of an inch piece of string, run it under there. On the 5th, it barely slides under, So it looks like the maximum bow is about the 5th or 6th fret, and it's 12 thousandths of an inch. Now I'll measure the low E string. It's catching under the 10th, 9th, 8th fret. There's just barely enough room when I get to the 6th, and it's catching around the 7th and 8th. So the bow is the same on both sides. So this is a really flat neck. That is optimal for playability. Next, to measure the action at the 12th fret, it's a little bit more simple. Under the thinner low E string, it's 5/64 of an inch. The low E string is also 5/64 and 60 thousandths of an inch. Now for the high E strings, first one's about 3/64 of an inch, and the closer in one is still less than 4/64 of an inch. So in decimal, about 40 thousandths for the inner one. The action on this guitar is very, very low, which is going to make it play great. Plays with no buzzing, because the frets are completely and totally level, especially at the higher up frets. To make sure that the action isn't set too low, I just want to go through every note on every string, make sure it plays clean with no buzzing. So yeah, every fret on every string plays clean all the way up and down the fretboard, even with the action that low. That's probably boring, but it's gotta be done. Might as well record it.